to have this conversation, I'm very excited to bring into our virtual studio. His name is Clarence H. Carter, and he's the Commissioner of Human Services for the state of Tennessee. Commissioner, welcome to Defending Ideas.
Nic, thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here with you and to share some of my thinking with your audience.
Commissioner, I'm really grateful because one of the things that I think we're going to get from this conversation today is you have been doing this work for a long time. In fact, you've written a book about this work called Our Net Has Holes in It. We'll include the link to that in the show notes, of course, as well. And I want to sort of take this opportunity in this conversation to give our audience sort of an inside look from someone who's helped to run and lead these kinds of programs for a number of years in this country. We've talked about this issue a lot in this on this show, but I think it's important to recognize the kinds of things we deal with here in Utah, the kinds of things we're talking about at the national level, the kinds of things you see in Tennessee and on other past roles. We're sort of trying to build this collective, this consciousness, I guess, that says that or shows that we really do need to engage in some significant reforms to the social welfare system to make the American dream within reach for more of our fellow American families. So with that context, can you maybe first talk to us about, help our audience understand your story, how you came into this work in the first place, what you've done, and kind of how you landed there at Tennessee? Just give us kind of your experiences so we know that context going into this conversation.
So, sure, Nic. I have spent a career in the administration of human services or public safety net programs and agencies for the past 34 years. I've had the blessing and good fortune of serving in the administrations of 2 presidents, 4 governors, and a mayor, all in the administration of the benefits, goods, and services of our society to serve those that are economically, socially, and developmentally vulnerable. And I have done that, of course, at the federal, state, and local levels of government. And the 34 years in this work and developing an understanding of it that almost no one outside of it could, it prompted me to write the book Our Net Has Holes in It, because I wanted to share with the public something that, while this issue is clearly important to our broader society, almost no one outside of it knows what's inside the black box. And so I wanted to, as somebody who literally had a career inside the black box, to share with, if you would, John Q. Public, what's right and what's wrong with our safety net and how we can transform it to better serve our vulnerable neighbors.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that context is really essential because as we've talked about this issue here on Defending Ideas for a number of years now, a number of episodes where we've tried to dive into all of this, you know, we often bring data and analysis, and you know, here at Sutherland Institute, we're a public policy think tank. So that's what we do. We put out research papers and events and media content like this to try and help understand this. And we've had folks sitting in the studio with us who are participants in the social safety net who can tell us what it's like to experience it. And so I think your perspective, especially working at the federal level, at the state level in different states, you've kind of attacked this issue, if you will, from many different vantage points over the years. And I want to ask how that fed into the book. I mean, as you looked around at your experiences administering social welfare programs in various parts of the country over decades, and then looked at sort of the way the public perceives or the way policymakers perceive that system, what is your hope that your book will do? Again, the book title, Our Net Has Holes in It. I guess, why did you feel like, well, I've got to write this? We need this to help us better understand these issues, to make improvements.
So Nic, it begins with an understanding that this country, it is the most benevolent and generous nation known to humankind. And I start the book off by delving into that some and how we manifest that benevolent spirit. And so it begins with the fact that we care about human vulnerability, and whether that human vulnerability is amongst our own citizenry or all across the world. Okay, we give a damn about vulnerability, and one of the ways we manifest that is that we expend, federal government alone spends $1.49 trillion annually in 114 programs, each designed to address some aspect of human vulnerability. Okay? And so we care enough, we spend enough. Why do we have the poor outcomes that we have? And so the motivation was, this clearly is something that our entire citizenry cares about. How can we build on what we have to do this better for our vulnerable neighbors that desperately need some kind of supports to help them make their version of the American dream come true? That really is the motivation behind the book.
Commissioner, I love the weaving in of the American dream idea, because it gets to sort of the aspirational purpose, or what should be the aspirational purpose of a social safety net at all here in the United States. So I love that framing, that when we talk with, it's usually single moms with some kids who are on these government programs. When we, and again, we've had some of them in this chair right here. I'm pointing to our chair in our physical studio here, sharing their story. They don't want to be on these programs if they could avoid it. They don't want to stay on these programs. They want to work and achieve work-based self-reliance. And there really is this hunger for the American dream in these folks. So I love that framing. I wonder if you can share, if in a couple minutes, and then we'll take a break, and then when we come back from the break, I want to dive into some more detail about what you articulate in your book and kind of what you've seen in your role there in Tennessee and elsewhere. But if there was kind of one key takeaway from your book that you would really want people to remember, regular voters especially, as well as policymakers, when we're thinking about or talking about opportunity policy, what's the one big thing that you think gets missed that we have to remember in these conversations?
That we have to have a shared vision for our societal objective for those neighbors experiencing some form of vulnerability. And I believe that shared vision has got to be freedom for them to be able to carry out their unique version of the American dream. We have built a system, unfortunately, which is really more about the delivery of benefits, goods, and services. And we've lost the notion of what we came here to do. And I think what we should have come here to do is to free people to act in their own best interest. So the most important takeaway is first a shared vision. And then that shared vision ought to be, how do we, very much in the context of the framers of our society, they set out to create a society where the greatest degree of freedom could be experienced by the citizenry while protecting for health, safety, and commerce. And so it stands to reason that all of the organs of that society ought to support that foundation principle of freedom. That needs to be the shared vision of our safety net.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.